Yeah, so welcome to Business Talk Podcast. I'm your host Deepak, and we have the privilege of hosting Professor Sandeep Goel, a distinguished professor in area of accounting, finance, and corporate governance at Management Development Institute, Gurgaon. Professor Goel brings with him a wealth of knowledge and experience, making him a leading authority in his field. Join us as we dwell into his insightful perspective on corporate governance and discuss his acclaimed book on the subject. Let's give a warm welcome to Professor Sandeep Goel, an esteemed faculty member specializing in accounting, finance, and corporate governance, joining us on today's podcast. Professor Goel, a very warm welcome to this podcast episode. It's an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Bhatt. Thank you for these kind words. And hi, everyone. This is something which normally, gives me an opportunity to interact with everybody in terms of the corporate governance, not as a concept, but also as a process. And in between, I'll also be talking about my book on corporate governance, and we'll take you through the journey of corporate governance as a part of both from the academician perspective and the practitioner perspective. Now, the first issue which comes out as a layman, somebody who doesn't know what corporate governance is, or somebody who does about. So let's delve into this implication of corporate governance as a concept and as a definitional perspective. In simple terms, if I put it, corporate governance is all about the way corporates are managed. But the issue comes out is, why do I need to look into this? The idea is there have been cases where corporates have not managed their conduct or business affairs in the right direction. That is in the fair and transparent manner. And that is where the rationale or the relevance of corporate governance arises. And this is where I'll take you back to 1990s, especially in India. Those who might be younger people might not have heard about Harshad Mehta and Ketan Parikh, but they might have gone through on Google Uncle. I call it as Google Uncle because you get every answer on Google now. In our days, we used to scroll out through libraries and other applications for gaining knowledge and information, but now you have everything on Google. So that's the whole idea. So if you Google out, you'll find out names like in 90s, and that is what which brings out the entire relevance of corporate governance as a rational, as a concept, and as a process. And this what actually led that corporate should be taken into consideration in terms of business compliance, in terms of business affairs, in a very right and a fair manner. That is what corporate governance comes out as a process. And it's not only which was required in 1990s or 2000, it's still required today. Rather, if you look at recent cases in India, you go through in terms of cases like ABG Shipyard 2 years back. You talk about cases like ILFS 2018, DHFL, Diwan Housing Finance Limited. And obviously, who can forget about the pioneer case for infamous reasons, Satyam. This is what which brings out that corporate governance is not only relevant in present times, but it's also going to be a very upcoming and a significant area in future as well. And that's one area which I think corporate should look into for various applications in terms of looking after shareholders and stakeholders. And that's the reason why we normally insist that corporate governance should be there, not just in letter, but in spirit. Yes, we have laws, we have regulations, we have enforcements, we have SEBI's LODR, that is listing obligations, disclosure regulations requirement. We have Companies Act 2013. We have a lot of other regulations in place. But again, this is something which can't be enforced just by law. It has to be taken in spirit. And that is what we expect, that if the management starts taking in the right direction, I think the idea is done. And that is where my book comes. Sorry, I am taking a pride in sharing my book, but this is something which comes out as filling that void on corporate governance. There have been a lot of textbooks, lot of books on corporate governance in India, in globe. But take my word, this is something which I really come out and vouch for this, that there is no real textbook on corporate governance in India, especially in terms of the recent updates, the challenges, the current regulations. And that is where we have come out in terms of refining corporate governance as the most updated and recent current application base a textbook, which not only provides you an idea about corporate governance as a process, but also in practice, and also in terms of with real life examples, like when we talk about cases like Satyam or Enron or WorldCom or Wipro or Amul. And plus, it has a very handy application in terms of the instructor manual. So those who will be referring this as a faculty, they can gain an access to instructor manual, point presentations, all online quizzing, cases, exercises. The students can always come out and gain an insight into these practices through not only real world examples, but also in terms of going through my website, that is sandeepgl.com, where I come out with monthly blogs, and you can check out on various issues of corporate governance and related applications. So that's the reason I would say check out my book. I think it would come out and fill those applications. As far as the components are concerned, when we say the basic, the first question which arises in everybody's mind is, what are the basic components of corporate governance? I would say board of directors. But is board the only force which plays a major role in corporate governance? Answer would be no. And this is where we talk about that within the board, I have to look at particularly who act as gatekeepers to shareholders, that is independent directors, and at least one independent woman director. This becomes all the more relevant. So we have to look at these two pillars in particular. But in general, I would say board would be the most important factor in terms of corporate governance. And that's the whole idea that can we enforce corporate governance in spirit? Yes, if IDs play their role in the right direction, if IDs play their role in terms of the application of true spirit, and women directors, not like Miss Chanda Kochar, sorry to say that, but that's again in reality. We all know ICICI Bank. So barring Chanda Kochar, there would be people in terms of acting as real custodian of shareholders as women director on the board. And that is what I think we should expect and look up to these two catalysts, these two forces for effective corporate governance.
Very insightful, conversation, Professor Goel. Thank you. Professor Goel, can you throw some lights on the challenges in corporate governance?
Mr. Bhatt. Yeah. I think one of the biggest challenges which we come across is having the right board. And this is where we talk about that right board has to be an optimum combination of executive directors and non-executive directors. Though we have regulations in place that is based on CMD and non-CMD concept, we generally come out and decide our board composition, especially in terms of independent directors. But there is no real definition of right board as a part of compliance. It all depends on company to company and industry to industry. But having a right board, I basically mean by with right mindset. And that's the reason we look up to Tata's and Infosys, or let's say we go to US, we talk about companies like Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's company, or General Electric. They have been pioneers in corporate governance because you have the right people sitting on the board with the right mindset, and which actually plays a very important role. And second, which I face because I myself sit as an independent director, in one of the Suzuki joint ventures. So I can gauge and vouch out for this, that a lot of people come out to be ornaments. So please don't be ornaments, be active participants. And this is where we normally talk about that board participation is must, and especially at the ID level, because they are the one who might not be joining on day-to-day basis. So when you come prepared, take an active part, play your role judiciously, and come out be an active force in looking after stakeholders' interests, because you are the one who are actually looking after them, and you have nothing to lose but a lot of things to lose in terms of liabilities and responsibilities. And that's the reason when we talk about companies like Enron, the first biggest fraud ever happened in the world, in US in 1990s, or what we call Enron, Ramalingan Raju, or we talk about recent cases of good corporate governance like Wipros. So these are the cases where management has played a very important role. People like Ramalingan have destroyed the company, but people like Azim Premji or Ratan Tata have taken the company to greater spirits. So it means the board and the management plays a very important role in terms of with its direction, with its leadership, with its motivation, and most importantly, the right mindset. So I think that would be the biggest challenge. If we overcome this, I think the job is done. And then we can have a number of good corporate governance examples, either nationally or internationally, right from Tata's to Berkshire Hathaway.
So basically, our audience wants to know what is the actual role of the board of governance, what they do, when they come on a board of a company. So what are their job responsibilities?
The new entire corporate management, it is the key pillar, or it would be the central point of the corporate management. Right, if I take a small example, when I say Reliance, we have Mr. Mukesh Ambani as the CMD. When I say Tata's, Mr. N. Chandrasekharan is the chairman, but he is not the managing director of all companies, or maybe few companies, depending on his roles and responsibilities. So the board is the one which actually flows from the chairman, that is the top of these affairs, and running from managing director to the chief executive officer. So they have to decide and give the right direction as a policy making, number one. And number two, obviously as a MD or a CEO or a COO, which is a very common term in nowadays, we also call it as lot of other nomenclatures to this chief operating officer. That is the one who actually steers the ship corporate in terms of running and working application. So he has to execute whatever is being given to him, but should not be executing as a passive player, but an active participant. Whenever he feels something is wrong, whenever he feels something is not in the right direction, he should come out and share with the top management. So the entire board is not just responsible for the policy making, but also giving the right direction, making it very certain and very sure that it is going in the right direction and actual application. And third, they have to come out and revive their processes, because everything at one point of time gets redundant. And if it becomes obsolete, I think the entire purpose, the entire application of corporate running and corporate management, I think, is destroyed. So you have to come out and revive your processes, reform your applications, give a new life to your, because sciences is one part. If I say tick box, yes, I might be a good company on tick box, I might be a ethical company on corporate compliance and ethical applications, but I might not be good in practice. And that is where the board has to come out and really, right from policy making to direction to execution to continuous refinement to continuous revival, it has to come out. And that is where a very important issue comes out is board performance. Board performance has to be evaluated. And this is where SEBI and other regulators, they decide, and they have come out with their own policy frameworks for appraising the board performance. But I would say, why should wait for SEBI? Why should wait for regulators? Why should check out and look at these legal applications for appraising our performance? Can't it be a self-appraisal? Yes, it should be. So we should be continuous, not only at the chairman or a managing director, but also as other directors when we talk about independent and women directors. Plus, we should also be acting as a bridge between the top layer and the mid layer, that is the functional directors who are heading different verticals, right from HR to marketing to finance. And that is where a line of communication, a channel of medium for exchange of views should be there. It should not always be top to bottom. It should be bottom to top. And that is where we look at applications like whistleblower mechanism. So whistleblower is not about just waiting for something wrong to happen and then bell the cat. Rather, it is application based or proactive, I would say, in a sense, preventive. So you should look at your process on continuous basis so that you can come out and check out your regulations on day-to-day basis. And the role of ethics, important role in terms of business affairs and policy making. And this is, I think I would like to quote an example of Wipro. Wipro, laid back in early 90s and 2000, has been getting a lot of red flags, but they came out with this and they revived their ethical code of conduct and processes. Similarly, a lot of companies like Apollo Tires in 2018, there was a case when the salary and the remuneration part of the people in the management were not taken in the right spirit by shareholders. And it went to ultimately the last stage where it has to be revoked. So can you promote an ethical culture in and outside the organization? Outside, maybe not in your hands, but inside is always controllable. So why not come out and promote an ethical culture? And I think ethics are something which are led by an example. So lead by an example, be ethical as a management, as a board, as the leader of the company. And if you do that, I think the entire application would be served. And that is what I think board has to play.
Hello.
Yeah, Mr. Bhatt. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Professor, there is a technical error happened.
Not
Yeah.
an issue. Yeah.
Sir, we can continue.
Okay. So when we talk about board, like we had a discussion on the board role and the board participation. So I was more looking at in terms of the catalyst that they can come out and really look at the policy making as business affairs. So if they set the policy in the right direction, I think the job is done. That's number one. Number two, they should not be confined to just policy making. They should also ensure the policy has got executed in the right direction. And third, there should be a continuous monitoring and revival.
Hello.
Yeah, Mr. Bhatt. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Professor, there is a technical error happened.
Not an issue. Yeah.
Sir, we can continue.
Okay. So when we talk about board, like we had a discussion on the board role and the board participation. So I was more looking at in terms of the catalyst that they can come out and really look at the policy making as business affairs. So if they set the policy in the right direction, I think the job is done. That's number one. Number two, they should not be confined to just policy making. They should also ensure the policy has got executed in the right direction. And third, there should be a continuous monitoring and revival as an audit mechanism of those processes. Plus, they should not limit themselves only to the top layer. They should also come out at the mid-level and have a proper line of communication with as these applications for functional directors, especially when we talk about, let's say, a director HR or director marketing or director finance. So you have to continuously come out and motivate them. You have to continuously look at your basic challenges which they are facing and try to resolve them, and be acting as not they are just custodians, but acting as their friends, facilitators in terms of guiding them and taking the company to greater heights. And here I would like to insist, rather emphasize on something very important called as shop floor. That is the lowest level of the corporate. 99% we don't give due importance to these contractual workers or these manual workers at the lowest level, whereas they are the final and the ultimate stakeholders, I would say, as in terms of corporate affairs, because they are the one who might not be having a say in the company directly, but indirectly they are the one who get affected by any policy change, any ultimate forces in terms of corporate. Like as a basic citizen of a country, we are affected by what? Government policy changes. So we have an indirect say through our elected members. Similarly, a shop level worker or a customer of that company would be having a say through its various board people indirectly. So board has to take a due cognizance, a due notice of these ultimate stakeholders, right from shop level workers to consumers. Are they happy or not? They can come out and have a regular feedback. They can come out and look at their employees, maybe having, I would say, a cup of tea. I mean, does make sense with employees. Cherish out moments with them, take their feedback in terms of working conditions. So people like shop level workers, mid-level employees, customers, ultimate society, they are the one who are the real stakeholders. So as a board, I don't have to ignore them. As a board, I don't have to really sit in my ivory towers and check out, just look at those fancy numbers, but I have to regularly and update and continuously monitor in terms of with all the stakeholders in community. And that is where SEBI puts a lot of emphasis on board performance and appraisal, because board performance doesn't come out just with having, as I said, tick box. It also comes out with regular monitoring. Are you really taking a part, active part? Are you really having a say in the policy making? Are you really going on the field sometimes? Might seem unrealistic, but I would say it is need of the hour. It is something which is really required as per the demand of the time. Otherwise, you would be out of the race. And that's where, I mean, a lot of new generation companies, or I would say most of the startups like Paytm, despite a lot of controversies, or the recent IPOs like Nika, or I would say in terms of other cases, have gone phenomenally well with the shareholders. Just sheer reason is active participation. So board, I would say, is the heart and blood of the company as a nucleus of that corporate management. And if we have to really talk about, board has to not only participate, but also act as ethical considerators, ethical participants in terms of role models for various people at the corporate affairs. And that is where we look up to people like Mr. Ratan Tata, or Mr. Azim Premji in India, or let's say people like Warren Buffett. So it's not about just enjoying the power or the control in your hands, or maybe the high compensation or remuneration in your pocket, but also I mean playing and going hand on hand in the terms of stakeholders, so that they come out and really enjoy it and look up to that company with positive spirit. I think that is something which makes sense for the board to come out.
Yeah. Professor Goel, would you like to mention about the recent controversy of Bharat Pay, where Asnir Grover and the board of directors faced some difficult conversations?
Uh, yes, it is, as we all know, this is something which is already there, and this is something which is not new, which is a very regular application based practice. Generally, I mean, we confront these issues on day-to-day basis. Day-to-day basis, I mean, when we sit in board meetings, like when I sit in the company as a ID of Suzuki joint venture, I do face these issues and challenges. But the problem comes out is that if you are being sidelined, if you are the only one who are acting in that right application, you might get isolated. But despite being isolated, how do you steer that leadership? How do you steer that chain of direction in the positive spirit of shareholders? I think that all depends on you. And this is where you have to show your skills, because as an independent director, as I said, your job is ultimate, your responsibility is complete. And if you don't fulfill that, I think you would be losing out on your roles and responsibilities. So why not come out and discharge in the true spirit, so that the entire perspective gets application based in the right direction. So these issues would normally affect, not maybe in the short run, but they do affect in the long run, especially in the market forces. Because when I say a company is going like this, that is in the upward direction, I would obviously like to go and invest in that company. But whenever anything happens in terms of a fluctuating or a turmoil, I would be the first one as a retail investor to withdraw my shareholding from that company. So these issues play a very ultimate force in the long run. Might not be affecting immediately on short run, but there are cases which have affected. Like if you go to the Hindenburg allegation, which was put against Adani Enterprises, and we all know what happened as a part of trading practices, that the position of Adani Group went down. But again, it was all something which is very short-sighted. As soon as they got a clearance from the court of law, they got application base in terms of green chit from various forces. Again, they started picking it up. So these issues are very common. It all depends on, as an ID, how do you face them? How do you handle them? And that is where I think the maturity of an ID comes out in place. And this is something which I think becomes very important for business applications, particularly sitting in the board, not just an ornament, but be an active participant.
Professor Goel, I have also noticed that many corporates are increasingly including academicians on their boards, with some serving on the boards of 6 to 7 companies.
Yeah.
Given their extensive commitments such as conducting academic research, teaching classes at business schools, consulting, handling administrative responsibilities, and focus on other critical areas. So how do they effectively manage their time across these diverse roles? If you can share some lights on this.
Uh, I'll take my example. I'm a professor at MDI, so I do teach, train, do consulting, publish. Not a very in terms of renowned author, but yes, I have some names, some significance in the market. And in between these roles and responsibilities, I do manage my ID roles. ID responsibilities in the Suzuki corporate. So you have to manage your time. Ultimately, you have to find out a right balance, a right chord, or I would say a strike, a right pulse between your day-to-day jobs and your ID roles. I would say the only option is either you take or you don't take it. If you take it in full spirit. If you don't take it, I think come out as a part of application and give it to somebody else. As we normally say that everything should go to the right person and everything should go to the people with the right mindset. And if you're not willing and if you don't want to devote time, if you can't manage your time and if you're not there to come out and discharge that role, I would say don't take it. But once you have taken into this, once you are into this, once you are part of that, I mean, I think I would say come out and discharge it in the full spirit, because you are actually coming out as a role model for somebody maybe outside, but looking to join that company or maybe looking to join that board. And especially as a professor myself, when I teach my young MBA students or when I train CEOs or lot of directors in corporate houses, I would be setting an example to them. So if I don't come out and do it myself, I think I would be failing in my job. I would be failing in my roles and responsibilities. And that is where I think it all is individualistic. It is all personal. You have to come out and decide yes or no. Once yes, be a part either, or otherwise, I mean, don't become a part, and don't be a silent speaker, because silent speaker is one who just listens and listens, who doesn't speak in actual, just speaks in writing. So don't be a silent spectator, I would say, or a silent application-based speaker, but be an active participant. So manage your time, and once you have it, I think enjoy it to the fullest.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Goel. Professor Goel, what advice would you give to professionals, who are looking to strengthen their knowledge and skills in corporate governance topic?
I would say come to me, read out my book, number one. Check out my book on corporate governance, theory and practice by Wiley. The recent, updated, current, comprehensive, and I can go on and on about my book, maybe self-proclaimed, but yes, it's a fact. It fills that void on a real textbook. So one is build your conceptual knowledge, build your concepts on corporate governance by reading the book. Follow my blogs on sandeepgl.com. And obviously, the basic suggestion, not the advice, I would say is inculcate your board skills, because board skills are not always inbuilt. They can be refined, rephrased. So attend training programs. And again, for that, I'm there. Approach me, invite me. I would be more than happy to come out. Rather, we have been conducting a lot of training programs at MDI for board level. I do a lot of consulting outside for board level at companies like IOCL and others. So this is where you can come out and do a lot of training programs to enhance your skills. But the first prerequisite I would say is build your concepts, build your premise that what corporate governance is, what are the requirements, what are the recent regulations, and then you can obviously refine and refresh by training programs. So besides me, obviously you have a lot of corporate houses, like we have IICA, the nodal body of Ministry of Corporate Affairs. You can always approach them, join their programs. You can join any organization in terms of their training programs. But yes, me and MDI are there to come out and offer you those training applications and refreshing your skills in those board level applications and processes.
Yeah. Professor, can you explain or describe the how global corporations are doing practices in corporate governance compared to Indian companies, Indian corporates?
Uh, Again, it's relative. I mean, when we talk about countries like Japan, or when we talk about countries like those areas of application in terms of South Korea, we normally look up to in terms of, let's say, Germany. We look, talk about something as a two-tier board, that is coordinated model of corporate governance, which is a more refined, more transparent model of corporate governance. And that's the reason the number of frauds you'll find out in these countries generally is relatively lesser or on a lower side. But as soon as I talk about US, or when you go to Central Europe, you normally find out cases on a higher side slightly. Like there was a case in Italy, Parmalat, long back. Similarly, in US, you talk about Enrons, WorldCom, Xerox. Even India is not an exception. But again, it all depends on the model you follow. Second, the refinement you have. Especially whenever you find out a shareholder model of corporate governance on a higher side, the chances of slightly deviation of corporate governance is higher. But as soon as we look up to coordinated or a two-tier board, I think the roles get divided, the responsibilities get divided, the corporate governance gets more enforced. So companies do manage their affairs as per the relative compliance, as per their native compliance. But again, it all depends from country to country and company to company. I would not come out and say this is best and this is worse, or this is good or that is bad. It all depends. But yes, as far as experience is concerned, as far as facts and figures are concerned, one part which is always looked up to for good corporate governance is Japan or Germany, where we have a two-tier board or a two-tier model. So it again boils down to the approach, but again, the ultimate point which lies down is the mindset, because they are the one who are very good at the initial stage of compliance and practicing it in terms of complete, fair and transparent manner. So it all depends on, again, the people who are managing that company. But yes, there are cases, there are facts, there are figures where one country or two countries or two nations are known for good governances. But yes, having said that, there is no single answer to that. There is no single solution to that, that this is good and that's bad. Boils down to changing processes and reforms. We also have learnt out. We also have come out with the continuous change in processes. And this is where our companies at 2013 is a very, I would say, innovative and a very pioneer change in corporate governance. And SEBI is already doing a good job for corporate governance and reforms, and especially applications in the form of continuous revival of listing requirements. And obviously, we have now a lot of multiple stakeholders who are actually taking an active interest also in the corporate affairs. Rising awareness has made these companies internationally more inclined towards corporate governance.
Professor, lastly, can you share a bit about your personal journey, in the field of corporate governance, and what drives your passion for this area?
Obviously, Mr. Bhatt, I'm too small in this ocean. Rather, I don't exist anywhere. I mean, coming to stalwarts or corporate in terms of maybe talking about corporate governance. So first of all, very humbly, I would like to put it that whatever I shared based on my personal experience, based on my personal teaching, training, consulting, and advisory role as application-based, a resource person, not an expert. I would not call myself an expert, but as a resource base on corporate governance for last 30 years. I passed out from Shri College in 95 and went back after that for my family business, did my master's, and initially there was nothing about corporate governance in 1990s. It was only in media, it was only in limelight, but it was not coming out as a regulation or a compliance those times. So obviously I learned, I sailed through, I survived, thrived through this journey of corporate governance. First as a practitioner, second as a professor. I teach a very important course here in MDI called as Forensic Accounting and Corporate Governance, which I teach abroad also at Poland and at Paris. So based on my practice application, I started teaching it. And obviously, my idea is to teach something which is practical, which is not something only theoretical. So I try to, I don't know I am successful or not, but I try to mix and have a blend of both theory and practice. And that's the reason I've named my book as Corporate Governance Theory and Practice. So I try to have a blend of theory and practice in corporate governance, try to inculcate those values among my students at MDI, at other places, in my participants. And obviously, what else better than tasting that itself as an independent director in the Suzuki Corporation. So apart from teaching, training, consulting, I am actually testing it, or rather I would be saying that I am facing it on day-to-day basis. Every time when I sit in board meetings or when I am asked for my rules, my ideas, my views, my suggestions in the policy making, I'm tasting the medicine myself. So that's one of the basic factor which actually comes out and adds to my journey as a corporate governance resource person. And I think that is something which actually makes me a better person, if not a better corporate director or a manager. And I think this is the essence, that when you try it yourself, when you check out yourself, I think the learning gets better. And I think I'm still on the learning path, and maybe 10 years down the line, if you ask me, I still would be learning, and learning would go on, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Sandeep Goel, for joining us and shared your insights about corporate governance and the role. Uh, on behalf of Business Talk and Global Management Consultancy, I am very thankful to you for spending your valuable time with us. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Mr. Bhatt, and bearing with me for last couple of minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.